joining us today. Can everyone hear? Is this working? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today here at the Douglas County Preservation Conference. We're so glad you could all make it. We have a great lineup of speakers today, and I'm not going to take up any of your time. I just wanted to welcome you on behalf of the Heritage Conservation Council and welcome our first speaker, Christina Haswin.
Hello, good morning. My name is Christina Haswood, or Representative Christina Haswood. I represent Kansas House District 10, which currently still includes Baldwin City, a little bit of Eudora, a little bit of Wellsville, and the southeast of Lawrence. With redistricting, and when the new rep gets sworn in for this area, unfortunately I will not be representing Baldwin City in the next upcoming legislative session, probably starting January. But it's had a really beautiful history here in Baldwin City. I had a lot of great time these past 2 years in my capacity bragging about Baldwin City and Topeka, because I believe that you guys are all leaders in solar development, conservation, preservation, and the Blackjack Battlefield has been such a historic landmark and an important part of our history in the Douglas County and the state of Kansas area. I am happy to also give a little bit of a welcome and welcome everybody here. I just want to acknowledge that we are on the stolen lands of the Kickapoo, the Kakasuka, the Kansa, the Osage folks who were the indigenous people who inhabited this land. I am also indigenous, but I am Navajo from the Southwest area, the Arizona area, so I enjoy learning about the indigenous history that have been here in the state of Kansas and also this region in Douglas County, as we have Haskell Nations University just down the road, and Baker and Haskell share similar timelines in the 1800s. And I'm happy to have worked with the Blackjack Battlefield Board in hoping to secure funding to ensure that that preservation work still continues. I strongly believe in teaching history for future generations, even though it might not be pretty most of the time, but also to preserve the land and the natural plants and wildlife that we have so precious to Kansas. As an indigenous person, a lot of the wildlife that's native to the lands of Mother Earth have healing purposes, and with Kansas being such a big agricultural state, we really value being good stewards of the land. And I know our farmers, ranchers, and producers in this area as well take that to heart so we can continue to serve the backbone of not only the state of Kansas, but for the country and the world as well. I just want to welcome everybody here to this conference. This is a really exciting opportunity. It's my first time being here, and I look forward to the conference continuing for the next several years. Just want to say welcome. I hope you all have a good time this weekend, and thank you so much. Go ahead.
Good morning, friends. It's really a privilege to be here with you today, and I'm so glad I was invited back to the stage in order to help kick off today's exciting conference schedule. I expect that this will become an important tradition in this community and for Error County, and I'm really proud of that. My name is Shannon Reed. I am the Douglas County Chair of the Board of County Commissioners currently. I represent District 2, which includes Baldwin City, and the unincorporated areas between here in Eudora, along with Eudora, and southeastern, eastern, and North Lawrence, and Grant Township. So 2 of our districts currently in Douglas County cover pretty large geographic regions with lots of different smaller ecosystems, particular historic landmarks, and we have a really rich history, both natural and cultural, in this community. I was asked to join you all here today, and I was given about 10 minutes, and hopefully I'll get a little cue if I happen to go longer than that, but I'll keep my eye on the time. just to share some stories with you about my experience growing up in this community in Douglas County. I grew up in Lawrence, eastern and southeastern Lawrence my whole life, and currently live in North Lawrence, and am really proud to be from this place for a lot of reasons. For those of you that are from here, or maybe know some of the rich history of this community, you might know that history lessons, local history lessons, as well as natural conservation and heritage preservation was pretty ingrained into our local schools, at least Lawrence Public Schools. I can speak to that, and also other organizations, the universities that we have here, including Baker, KU, and Haskell Indian Nations University. And today I wanted to talk to you about some of my stories as it relates to Haskell in particular. So without being too exhaustive about my personal life history, I do want to share a few stories about myself and my experiences in relation to this particular place. And my hope is that I can share some of what I've learned over time about the hard but necessary truths of a place that I happen to call home, in the context of my own cultural realities as a white woman of European ancestry, responsible for the violent colonial settler mentality that first tried to eliminate indigenous nations, then forcibly removed the survivors from native homelands, stole children to abuse them into assimilation, and then ultimately decided to homogenize multiple distinct cultures and tribal nations into a fetishized monoculture, which is something that I think we battle in our contemporary culture today. That's the lineage that I come from. That's my personal truth, and I do my best to own that. The thing is, I'm only really lucky enough to know that and be so comfortably aware of that personal heritage story of mine because I grew up here, not because my family shared stories or recollections of the generational harms that we both created, participated in, and experienced ourselves, but only because of the many vulnerable, honest, and painful stories that I learned as a student at Broken Arrow and Billy Mills Middle School in the mid to late 90s, which some of you may recall, if you're locals, was once known as South Junior High. That's another story that I'm going to come back to a little bit later. As some of you may be able to relate, growing up in Lawrence and Douglas County at large, there were lots of school lessons, field trips, study about different historical spots like the Blackjack Battlefield, like the Santa Fe Trail, and numerous other places just in just about every corner and creek and holler of this county. I was steeped very much so, especially in my early education, in the deep history of this place's abolitionism and the legacies of anti-slavery action. That's an example of local history that in some ways I think is pretty universally known, at least for anyone who learned the full history, took an interest in the history of that time period in this country. I got to work for somebody when I lived in New York City for a couple of years, and I like to joke that I kind of maybe got the job because I mentioned I was a proud Lawrence Townie. He completely geeked out for about half of our interview on the history of this place in Pottawatomie Creek, and the Blackjack Battlefield, and Quantrell's Raid, and Lecompton being a territorial capital prior to Kansas being an anti-slavery state. So I was really steeped in that history, and I'm really proud of that. Something that I think is a little less widely known and discussed is the history of Indigenous peoples in general in this community. There are many, many things to discuss. In our community, we happen to have a unique place that is now Haskell Indian Nations University, a really important center for tribal education for folks from over 500 tribes in the United States. And so, lucky me, I got to grow up in a time where when I was at what is now Billy Mills Middle School, used to be South Junior High School, I had a principal named Russell Blackburn. And he was really intentional in making space for Indigenous cultural exchanges and truly inclusive history lessons for us as students. Those years were really formative for me personally. And they really were the early seeds and drive for my social justice and community care work, and what I believe is important for all of us to constantly interrogate in ourselves and in our families and in our communities, which is the social responsibility we have to recognizing our past in a whole truth and figuring out how to not repeat some of those parts of those truths and figure out how to carry forward in healing. And I think that historic preservation, site preservation, prairie restoration, ecological conservation, and talking about Indigenous practices of land management and land stewardship, all of those are examples of how we continue to discuss our history and our present and how we want to create and build a better future. So we were taught in my school, almost immediately I can remember upon becoming a student there, that our land, the land that our public schools and a nearby city park also were on, had belonged to Haskell not long ago. And more importantly, that entire area surrounding all those campuses to the south was once sacred, was one that was of and is of sacred importance to many Native residents of our community and beyond our community. One that we needed to show the utmost respect for. I was lucky to be taught early in life about the significance and value of the Wakarusa wetlands, which make up much of that area, and I feel really grateful that I was taught early on why I must honor that space in our community. Not just because of the Wakarusa wetlands' sensitive ecosystem that is important to protect for a variety of reasons, but because it is a sacred space where I was told of many quiet burials and ceremonies that took place in order to more properly honor their dead with meaningful traditions that our federal government tried hard to erase. A heartbreaking effort to give a sacred final resting place to their stolen relatives. These stories are things that I remember because of the way in which I learned them, which was primarily through guided walks, through trails in the Haskell wetlands, visits to the Medicine Wheel earthscape that was created, I believe, in 1992 out there. These stories are things I remember because of how I learned them. And because we were taken out there on many occasions to help track and count and just wander at the thousands of monarch butterflies who reliably pass through our area and specifically through those Wakarusa wetlands every year on their journeys. On those days, I wasn't only being given science lessons about the uniqueness of an ecosystem and the importance of protecting it and understanding it. I was privileged to also be given rich cultural lessons shared through generous oral histories about the whole history of a place. And that's something that has really stuck with me in life, and I have a reputation for being a very curious person, and I'll go down many rabbit holes of research, and some of you may relate to having so many tabs open and so many ideas for what you might do in the places you might see and the sights you might experience when you travel to new places you haven't been. Because I think there's a lot of power in experiencing the feeling of a place and the whole history and all of the stories of a place. So I was lucky in life to be taught the truth of Haskell's original history. And I just wanted to share that for those of you who may not know that it was one of the first United States Indian industrial schools, and it was a boarding school where Indigenous children were forcibly brought to, and many of them didn't make it home, unfortunately. I haven't finished the entire document yet, but I recently got far enough in the Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative report that was released earlier this year, which I have specific interest in reading because it is because Haskell's campus and history is such an integral part of that national history that exists here. So I just want to read an excerpt because I think it illustrates how powerful public policy can be and how harmful public policy can be. The federal government accordingly devised artificial communities of Indian children throughout the federal Indian boarding school system, resulting in the creation of other Indian families and extended families depending on whether an Indian child returned to the child's own Indian tribe or Alaska Native village or located elsewhere after completing education in a federal Indian boarding school. For example, in 1886, Haskell Institute in Kansas instituted, quote, a stricter form of discipline than heretofore prevailed by establishing a cadet battalion organization of 5 companies to break up the tribal associations. In that year alone, the Institute intentionally mixed Indian children from 31 different Indian tribes to disrupt tribal relations and discourage or prevent Indian language use across the Apache, Arapaho, Cheyenne, Cherokee, Chippewa, Comanche, Caddo, Delaware, Iowa, Kiowa, Kickapoo, Kaw, Mojave, Muncie, Modoc, Miami, New York, Omaha, Ottawa, Osage, Pawnee, Potawatomi, Ponca, Peoria, Quapaw, Seneca, Sac and Fox, Seminole, Shawnee, Sioux, and Wyandotte children. The department acknowledged that the intermarriage by the young graduates of different nations would necessitate the use of English language, which their offspring would learn as their mother tongue. As someone who is an elected representative now, with the power to both create and change local policy, I've been trying really hard to stay rooted in the ills and tragedies of many governments' policies, past and present alike. Language matters, and those 31 known tribes should have been able to retain their own mother tongue, even if they had made the choice to also learn English. Their languages were not ours to steal, yet we did, and that was a result of public policy. That's an example of the kind of history and heritage and truth that I think is important for all of us to seek out. And I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to grow up in a place that taught me the full history of places, that took me to experience spaces and hear the oral histories of people who were not of the same ancestry or traditions or current communities that I may be from. That has a significant impact, and I'm really grateful for that. And I hope that as we move forward in all of our efforts across preservation of places and people's stories and the uncovering of stories previously untold or undertold, that we continue to lean into some of the discomfort of talking about what our ancestors may have been a part of. And I think that unlocks our ability to figure out real pathways towards healing and imagine different futures that respect our past. And we have some really great examples of that in Douglas County. Just recently, Billy Mills Middle School was created because of a local advocacy campaign to honor a Native American man who graduated from Haskell, who also happens to be an Olympic champion, while he was still alive, which was specifically a cultural tradition for many indigenous cultures, to know that it was important to honor someone while still alive. So thank you so much for your time. I'm really excited to be here and excited to hear some of the sessions later today, and I hope you all enjoy this conference.
I am so excited. This conference is about making connections. We're all interested in these things. I am so moved by Shannon's speech and also what Christina had to say. I have been looking for a connection. I feel I have just made one. This is wonderful. We'll talk later. I am here as a representative of Baldwin City Main Street to welcome you to our town. And so We have beautiful pictures that kind of go with the speech. And you'll see in a lot of the numbers that follow here, pictures of murals that are across our town. So if you drive through town, you'll notice those, and they're a big part of our community. Unfortunately, I kind of have to read sort of this speech because I didn't write it, so I apologize. In 2021, Baldwin City became a Main Street America community. The Main Street program leads a movement committed to strengthening communities through preservation-based economic development in older and historic downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts. For more than 40 years, Main Street America has provided a practical, adaptable, and impactful framework for community-driven, comprehensive revitalization through the Main Street approach. Baldwin City is now part of a network of more than 1,200 neighborhoods and communities, both rural and urban, who share both a commitment to place and to building stronger communities through preservation-based economic development. Since 1980, communities participating in the program have leveraged more than $95 billion in new public and private investment, generated over 161,000 net new businesses, and close to 718,000, these are big numbers for me, net new jobs, and rehabilitated more than 314,000 buildings. Main Street America is a nonprofit subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. We are officially 6 months into the program, but after 4 months, our data showed that we had excelled in our forward movement with the program. And this program is one of the most effective economic development tools known to any city in America. We began our program with 9 board members, but we have now expanded to 13 to broaden the voice of Main Street. We have 4 committees representing the design, promotion, organization, and economic vitality of Baldwin City. These committees are comprised of over 55 community members who care deeply about their community and gather to maintain, revitalize, and renew our downtown structures. Over 396 hours of volunteer time have been committed by these community members and chairpersons representing 60 downtown businesses. Baker University marketing students helped us. They gathered data in a survey related to downtown business owners. They helped identify the business owners' needs while supporting their success and what Main Street could do for this process. 8 specific projects have been developed to capture the history, the spirit, and the vitality of Baldwin City. One of these projects involves supporting businesses by gaining grants. The first of which was a $40,000 HEAL grant award for a thriving downtown Baldwin business to renovate the building of historic significance. Lori Trojan, who is the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce and the head of our Main Street program, told me that this is a new business that we don't know about yet. This hasn't been announced. Everybody thinks it's an old one that we already knew, but she told me this is something new, but she wouldn't tell me what business it was. So we all have to pay close attention. So watch the Chamber of Commerce website because they announce the Main Street stuff so we can find out what new business this is downtown. So it's pretty exciting. Main Street has also offered 4 educational opportunities for the small businesses here. They just last weekend had the first fundraising event called the Farmers and Makers Market. Over 30 vendors participated to raise support, to fund grants, and provide educational focus on preserving and strengthening Baldwin City. So downtown, we have just a couple of streets, but they were lined with vendors, and it was so successful. One of our store owners said that after the event ended, she had to keep her store open for 2 hours because she still had people coming into her store to purchase things. So we're so excited about the business that Main Street is bringing to Baldwin. And it's not just downtown. Business comes to downtown, but that means people come and they're along the highway, so the highway businesses and everybody else in town benefits, so it's a good thing. We also just received notice that we gained accreditation status through the Main Street program, and this required rigorous performance standards to be met. In 2021, Main Street America programs generated $5.76 billion in local reinvestment. They helped open over 6,600 net new businesses, generated over 30,400 net new jobs, catalyzed the rehabilitation of 10,595 historic buildings, and leveraged over 1.4 million volunteer hours. On average, for every dollar that a Main Street program spent to support their operations, it gained $19.34 of new investment back into the Main Street communities. So we're very excited about this program. If you were here last year for the program, this program, you heard about the brick streets, and everybody wanted to know what happened with those. We are excited to announce that the city just voted to put on the August 2nd ballot a half-cent sales tax to refurbish 14 brick streets here in Baldwin. So we're excited about that. We're proud, obviously, to be Main Street participate, and we welcome you to beautiful Baldwin City. On a side note, if you were not able to go on the Santa Fe Trail bus tour yesterday or the Prairie City Cemetery tour, or you want more of the information, that information is going to be on the Santa Fe Trail website, and that website information is in your brochure. It'll be on the website by Wednesday of next week if you are interested. So, welcome to Baldwin City and enjoy the conference. Thank you.
We are going to get some slides up here. Jamie Fiore was originally scheduled to present to you today. She's unable to attend, so I'm going to fill in. My name is Katrina Ringler. I am the Preservation Office Supervisor at the Kansas Historical Society. We're in the Cultural Resources Division, and we serve as the State Historic Preservation Office. Going through, I'll just kind of say next whenever I'm ready to go to the next slide, because I do have her notes, and I've added a couple of thoughts of my own today. So, as I said, at the State Historic Preservation Office, our fundamental tasks are identifying and designating cultural resources that are deemed worthy of preservation. Preservation's focus is on the physical environment. It's a tangible way for us to share a connection with our past. And I'm excited today to learn more and share more with you, all specifically about the cultural landscapes in Douglas County. Places where history and heritage are shared with the natural resources. Next. So cultural landscapes are sites where stories and dynamic pieces of our past can be experienced. They are associated with historic ways of life, traditional practices, rituals, homes, interrelationships, and interconnections. Next. They vary in size, scale, and design. Some are designed landscapes like campuses, gardens, or arboretums, such as the Bartlett Arboretum in Belle Plaine in Sumner County. Next. Others are less formal, vernacular spaces like trails or agricultural landscapes. These landscapes hold cultural value because they are developed over time as people use the land. The cultural character of the peoples and the activities of their everyday lives leave their mark on the landscape, such as the Santa Fe Trail here, crossing a riverbank and cutting down into the land where it has left its mark over time. Next. Places where significant events occurred are important in documenting our past, like the Medicine Lodge Peace Treaty site at Barber County. Important places aren't always in buildings. The tangible connections to historic stories like the struggle for cultural identity, representation, and equality can be felt in many sites where no human-made structures exist. Next. In other places, the site is a remnant and reminder of the interactive movements of people across space. When they moved, they shared their thoughts, feelings, and cultures through intangible and tangible ways. such as the route from the Midwest to the coast along Route 66, which passes through southeast Kansas. Next. Consider your surroundings as you travel and look around your community. See what you can learn about the everyday lives of people from the past. What impacts have they left? How can you find out more? And when you learn more, share those with others. Next. Cultural landscapes are just one example of the type of physical place where we can experience the effects of social, cultural, economic, and environmental history. At the Kansas Historic Preservation Office, we're working daily to help Kansans discover and preserve those stories through connections with physical places. We administer various programs, including survey to identify historic places, the National Register of Historic Places to designate those places that are most significant. We administer funding programs like the tax incentive program you'll hear about today, grants to preserve places. In fact, as an example, we, through a grant, are helping Douglas County to survey downtown Baldwin City in the coming year. We are proud to support local preservation programs like this conference through some of those funding sources, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day ahead. Thank you so much.
All right, good morning. How's everyone doing, okay? Hopefully my voice holds out for this. So I'm Amy Vandery. I'm the current chair of the Douglas County Heritage Conservation Council, and I just wanted to welcome everyone to this conference on behalf of our HCC group. I would also like to thank, first of all, our conference sponsors, Lumberyard Arts Center, Zimmershield Architecture, Lawrence Preservation Alliance, Kansas Public Radio, Baldwin City Chamber of Commerce, Baldwin City Library, Pishney Restoration Services, Kansas Historical Society, Santa Fe Trail Historical Society. This conference is also funded by a Historic Preservation Fund, or HPF, grant from the State Historic Preservation Office of Kansas. So that was a lot of great people that have been a part of getting this conference pulled together. Since its inception over a decade ago, the Douglas County Heritage Conservation Council has taken on several initiatives. Most folks are aware of the Natural and Cultural Grant Program, which if you're not aware of it, please check our website because we'd love to have anyone interested in a grant in Douglas County look into that and apply. This has benefited projects all over Douglas County. We've done projects ranging from stained glass window restoration of St. Luke AME Church in Lawrence, Kansas, to the Vinland Fairground Barn restoration. We also fund projects under numerous groups, including the Eudora Historical Society and Museum, Lecompton Historical Society, Friends of the Cobb, Haskell Cultural Center, Douglas County Historical Society, Watson Museum, Kansas Land Trust, Baldwin City, and many more, which if I miss someone, I apologize, but we have lists and lists. We also do public education strategies, including this conference, but we do different programs related to cemetery conservation, National Register nomination, tax credit seminars. We've had walking tours of historic district, organized barn preservation programs, and held public meetings related to township survey process. We participate in the Kaw Valley Farm Tour by serving as volunteer interpreters at historic sites related to rural life. And we've made historic preservation resources available to the public via in-person, via our website, and through Douglas County social media in general. So please, if you haven't ever checked out some of our stuff, please do so. In response to COVID-19 and the 2021 bicentennial of the Santa Fe Trail, the HCC collaborated with Freedom's Frontier National Historic Area and the Santa Fe Trail of Douglas County to create a landmark tour on a smartphone app for travelers and bikers. And we're actually beginning to roll out another one of these app tours that you can do, and that's going to be for Natural Landmark Tour, and that's coming up soon too. So we're continuing this collaboration with Freedom's Frontier as part of our ongoing work. Some of you may have participated in our Let's Get Started Barn Assessment Grant Program. In the first year in 2020, we had 6 barns participate. Of those barns, now 3 of them are listed on the National Register, and 2 received Kansas Agricultural Resource Grants for rehabilitation work. This last year, we did 10 more barns, and we're looking for an upcoming barn program to start. We also do multiple surveys, and at this point we've nearly completed the survey of Douglas County, unincorporated areas, which is really, really important because if you don't know what you have, you can't preserve it. You have to kind of survey and see what's out there. We're only, as one of only 2 county-certified local governments in the state of Kansas, the Douglas County Heritage Conservation Council's work over the past decade has become just a model for other Kansas counties, and we really try to continually move forward with our efforts in being creative and coming up with new ways to reach the public. So we are so excited to be part of the 2nd Douglas County Preservation Conference. Preservation is powerful, right? What we preserve becomes part of history. So we hope to continue our support of preservation of heritage, both tangible and intangible, and preservation of the natural environment. Stories are an important part of preservation. If we overlook a narrative or leave out a narrative, from the standpoint of preservation, we are effectively omitting that history from our story of humanity. We strive to find, celebrate, and preserve those untold and underrepresented narratives as part of our ongoing work. We are so grateful to all that have served on the council. We have supported our council and have been a part of the grants program. We all benefit from the collaborative efforts of those sharing a vision to promote the conservation of our cultural and natural heritage, to honor our past, enrich our present, and inspire our future. A final thank you to my fellow HCC council members, Vice Chair Jenny Tucano-Muller, Patty Gales, Mike Delaney, Roger Boyd, Lindsay Crick, and Nicholas Pumphrey. And most of all, a great thank you to our coordinator, Caitlin Stanley. She's our leader, our listener, and implementer of all things HCC. So if you see her today, tell her also thank you. Yay! Ready? Yeah. So the next session is going to start at 10 o'clock, and we're so excited. But I think we have about 10 minutes now beforehand. So otherwise, now we'll take a break and get a cup of coffee. Try to eat some of those donuts because I can't take those home. I'll eat them all by myself. So try to eat some donuts, get some coffee. If anyone has any questions about where to find a restroom or something else that you're looking for, please feel free to ask anyone that has HCC on their name tag or anyone at the front. We can help you out for sure. Thank you again, all of you, for coming. Wonderful to see you.